Human Rights Day, observed annually around the world on 10th of December, commemorates the anniversary of one of the world's most groundbreaking global pledges. That's the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR. The declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on 10th December 1948 and set out for the first time fundamental human rights to be universally protected. This year's theme is tagged Our Rights, Our Future, Right Now. However, as Nigeria joins the marking of the Human Rights Day 2024, human rights abuses remain a grave challenge in the country, with persistent violations undermining the dignity and well-being of citizens. Joining us now on the show is Hilary Ogbonna, Senior Human Rights Advisor at the National Human Rights Commission, NHRC. Good morning, Ms. Ogbonna, and thanks for joining us today on The Morning Show.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, viewers. Thanks for having me.
Morning. Well, good morning, Mr. Ogbonna. Today is International Human Rights Day, reminding us of the Declaration of the Universal Human Rights by the United Nations in 1948. If you could take us through the significance of this day and the theme, Our Rights, Our Future, right now, which is the theme for 2024, at a time when humanitarian issues, human rights issues are just the major concern of the world, whether it's in Ukraine or it's in Gaza or it's in Syria or even here in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. As a lawyer yourself, you know the significance of today. Exactly 76 years ago, the United Nations unanimously adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, calling it a standard for all nations and all peoples. And it was with a lot of hope that that instrument became today the most assented to, the most ratified piece of international treaty in the world. It is also the most translated human rights instrument or international treaty in the world. And it has shed light on constitutional developments amongst nations. The Universal Declaration for Human Rights has also led to decolonization of territories, to the end of slavery as we know it. And today you have human rights inscribed in practically every constitution in the world. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a gift to humanity, as the Secretary General of the United Nations has said on many occasions. So today is very, very significant in the sense that it is a day we call for action in the human rights community, knowing that despite the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in spite of national constitutions, international treaties, the International Bill of Rights, human right is not observed in many countries. Human right is not respected. But today also gives us the opportunity to celebrate the little gains that have been made. The little gains that have been made, especially in civil and political rights, in upholding children's rights, in freedom of expression and the media. We know that in terms of economic, social, and cultural rights, we are still a very long way down the road. In terms of international peace and security, we are still very far away from the dreams that we had in 1948 or the dreams we had in 1945 when the Second World War ended. But by and large, today calls for reflection. It also calls for some introspection as to the future. And the theme for this year is very apt because it looks at today, and it also looks at the future, the transformative nature of human rights, to place humanity as a special being, which is what human right is, the dignity and equality of all persons. How do we achieve that? The theme for today gives us that direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ogbonna. I think even the starting point is, and Nigerians are aware that they have human rights or what they are entitled to in terms of their rights. because part of the conversation today is also public enlightenment. Having people, people have talked about even taking it to schools, right from childhood, educate Nigerians and as citizens as to what basic human rights is. Because if you don't know what it is, you don't even know how to aspire to it or to demand for it or to enforce it. So I'd like you to just do as it were, a little education in that regard. Because if you judge Nigeria's rating in terms of our human rights, a lot of people will say it's not anywhere near a pass mark. We are failing in that regard. So first of all, what is it? This declaration, what is the basic right for every human being in Nigeria?
Okay, I will speak briefly on the Universal Declaration, and then I will talk about Nigeria. The Universal Declaration is a set of 30 articles, and like I said, it was the forerunner of many constitutions in the world. It was the forerunner of all the international human rights instruments, as you know today. So practically every human right is in the Universal Declaration. That's why it is 30 articles. So from civil and political rights like the right to life, the right to fair hearing, the right to peaceful assembly, the right to freedom of expression, the right to freedom of association, the right to freedom of movement, to economic, social, and cultural rights like the right to highest attainable standard for health, the right to education, and also the right to human dignity. When you come to Nigeria, Nigeria borrowed a lot from the Universal Declaration in Chapter 4 of the Constitution, which is the fundamental rights. But beyond the Chapter 4 of the Constitution, we now have human rights legislations like the Anti-Disability Act that was promulgated. That should be the youngest of all the human rights instruments we have. But Nigeria also have the Child Rights Act and the child rights laws in all the states. We also have the Freedom of Information Act and also Freedom of Information laws in virtually all the states. However, you made a very good point, which is, do Nigerians know about this right? And a human right education is very key. That's the foundation to the enjoyment of human rights. That's also, by extension, the platform upon which, when you become aware of your right, you are able to stand for it, you are able to hold government to account. So Nigeria, just like many other developing nations, face the crisis of human rights education. And that's why people are not able to claim their rights. But as we talk about human rights education for citizens, it's also good to talk about human rights education for government institutions, for law enforcement, because it's not just one thing to tell citizens, know your right. How about the violators? If they know about human rights, there is a likelihood that they are not going to violate the rights of citizens. So it's a two-way traffic. And like I said, today is one of those days in the year where we call attention to issues on human rights education, issues on human rights responsibility, but above all, we need to set structures at national, state, local government levels, community level, world level, for citizens to understand their right. And it is only when you understand your right, when you have that education to understand your right. Education is about dignity. That's why a university in Southeast Nigeria said that ignorance brings down the dignity of man, but education restores man's dignity. And I just want to stop there. Thank you.
I want to ask you some questions, sir. Some will be very provocative.
Yes,
at first, very provocative questions, yes. So please just get ready for it. I would like to know, what is the appropriate budgetary requirement you would need to really do your work? Because we've not heard a lot in terms of Nigeria Human Rights Commission in a while. And that's why I say it's going to be very provocative. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not saying I have the autonomy of all the truth. And how have you been doing? Because like I'm going through your website now. You said there's a place to lodge complaint. There's a toll-free number. How many Nigerians even know the toll-free number? And most of these laws you are talking about, take for instance, the law that you say you can ask government for information, freedom of information, it doesn't work. The other day, Serap asks for something from government, they've not answered till tomorrow. Child Right Act, the rights of children are still being violated. Underage children are getting married everywhere. So is it that you will need more money for this advocacy? I think it's just best because we've not really heard anything as regards the Human Rights, Commission and Circle and all of that.
Thank you very much, Rufai. And indeed, it's a provocative one, and I would answer you as much as I can. The Human Rights Commission really has been working. It may just be that your rights haven't been violated, or probably this is not an area you have devoted much time. And I really invite you to devote much time on human rights issues. You would understand some of the achievements of the Commission in terms of spreading its thin resources across the states and also using its investigative powers to hold law enforcement to account. We just concluded an 18-month investigation of the Nigerian Armed Forces. So the Commission is really working. We publish every month human rights situation in Nigeria as a dashboard. That's a lot of work. And in November alone, we had over 300,000 human rights violations reported to our offices across the 36 states and the FCT. But we need to do more. They say the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. We need to get more resources, more financial resources. In 2010, the Commission's Establishment Act was amended, giving the Commission a first-line charge. So we have a first-line charge to the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation. But that Consolidated Revenue Fund charge just gives the Commission about 5 billion naira annually. It's there on the website. We are quite transparent about our resources. So last year we had a little above 2 million complaints, 2 million human rights complaints to investigate. So just assume that we have to spend 5,000 naira in investigating each of these human rights violations. It may well mean that we may not be able to pay salaries of over 800 staff. But rather than complain, the Commission continues to do its work, attracting funding from donors. Donors are like the live wire of the Commission. And during the administration of Muhammadu Buhari, the Commission received a presidential grant of an additional 1 billion naira. So we used to have 4 billion naira annually, so you can imagine. So, but we made a very strong case, and that increased the budget. But we still need more resources, especially at state level, where the bulk of the complaints come from. And as I speak to you, I can assure you that today alone, based on trajectories that we have had in other months, today alone on daily basis, we may be getting up to like 10,000 complaints across the country on daily basis. So you need resources to investigate this. You need resources to train people. You need resources to do human rights education. We would want a situation whereby human rights violations are reduced to the barest minimum as a result of human rights education. So, and human rights education means money. It means deployment of resources, educational materials across the country. It also means going to police colleges to train police officers. It means working with the Nigerian Armed Forces. It means working with NGOs, training community volunteers as we have them now. You know, all of these are capital intensive, but the Commission is not resting on its oars. We continue to work daily, and we have some of the most hardworking staff who investigate human rights violations, sometimes at a very big, huge cost on their lives and that of their family members. But I really thank you for this platform to share some of these experiences with you, with Nigerians.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. Indeed, we're hoping that the situation will improve. And next year, when we celebrate International Human Rights Day, we'll have a more positive story to tell about human rights or upholding of human rights here in Nigeria. Thank you for the work that you do.